Hey everybody, so I've been meaning to make videos for ages, and there's a few reasons I haven't been making them, and the only reason why I'm doing it now is because literally the only day that I look forward to in any year, the only quote-unquote holiday, is Halloween. And if I'm not going to make a video for Halloween one year, then it's highly unlikely that I'll make a video at all for the entire year. And I was hoping to maybe do a whole series of videos, maybe write some special Halloween music, which I did last year. And honestly, to save you some time, I have nothing to show that I haven't shown in my previous videos. My previous year's Halloween videos, they're all up, but is anybody really going to go back and watch them? No, so I debated, am I just going to pull out and show the stuff that I've already shown? But if I don't do that, I got nothing to talk about. There's nothing new or different this year. Halloween is literally the thing that I start counting down on pretty much in November, for the next year. I don't care about Christmas. I don't care about Thanksgiving, Easter, 4th of July. I despise all those holidays now. But I also don't like the spring and summertime. Now, spring's okay, but I dislike summer so much that spring is ruined for me because it's leading into summer. So there's nothing in those holidays, that time of year for me that occurs around that to look forward to, except for Halloween. So not only have I loved Halloween since I was a kid, horror movies and all that stuff, but it's also the time of year. I love autumn time. I'm fine with winter. My second favorite, I'd rather have it be winter than be spring, to be honest with you. Simply because how much spring do we get anymore? We don't. It generally goes from winter to summer in a matter of a couple weeks. So behind me I have my usual stuff. I don't know how, actually, orange Halloween lights, and then the squarish things are actually tiki heads. And the reason I bought them, I love tiki. I love the tiki head thing too. But one of the reasons I love them so much is because they look like monster heads. So they're tiki / monster heads, which is the reason they're up. You see the little, maybe you can tell, the color seems off on the monitor to me, but those are orange Halloween lights. And what you can't see because they're so small and about that big there's hanging skeletons too, which are lights on there, which you can't tell. So I seriously start counting Halloween when it's at about 8 months away. I actually get excited when I reach that halfway point of the year when Halloween is 6 months or under away. So, that would place it like in the, pretty much in springtime, long before summer, As hard as it is to think about it, especially in summertime, man, when it's sweltering and it's June, July, and August, it's hard to picture Halloween. And yet, like when you get in August, I remember very specifically thinking this August, oh wow, Halloween's only 2 months away. It was sweltering out and disgusting and 100% humidity and all that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it comes so fast, and especially this year. This year it's been about 20 degrees warmer on a high daily basis. At the height of the day than it should be. It shouldn't be in the mid-70s up until like a week ago. It should be in the 50s, really. But it's been in the 70s. The leaves never changed. Actually, most of them have not even come off the trees yet. And they probably won't change. They'll probably just come off green. So it doesn't look like autumn. But I'm still doing my thing. I can't believe how close it is. It's almost over. Pretty much by the time people see this, it may be over. I meant to get on earlier. I just don't have the energy. Physically, I haven't felt that well. I've been feeling very run down, which is the main reason why, one of the main reasons why I haven't done videos. and also I got not much to, what am I going to say? I've been buying, I'm on a very tight budget. I have no income. I still find CDs here and there and get good deals, and people give me gift cards or whatever, and I pick up music. But I don't know. I felt funny about, oh, look, so here's the new thing I got, and there's no reason why not to show that, especially when it's music that people could probably don't know on their own and might potentially be interested in. And yet, I don't know. I felt odd about coming on and saying, oh, look, here's a new CD I got and it's good or whatever. But in preparation, I've been doing a lot of, this is my typical annual period. And I'm seasonal too with music, as I've mentioned before. In the summertime, even though I don't like the summertime, and the spring and all the seasons, there's music that every time that time of year rolls around, without me consciously thinking about it, I'm always drawn to. There's certain albums, like I went through this whole period this summer of listening to pretty much primarily acoustic music, more so than I have in many years. Now, it's always in the mix, but I spent a couple months listening to almost nothing but purely acoustic music, which is really rare for me. So there's a lot of classical music, pretty much, and I got into this unusual thing of listening to a lot of Chick Corea music, which I don't typically do, not a lot of his music. And literally all the Chick Corea music I listened to was strictly his acoustic stuff, which is, I don't know, like less than 10% of his catalog. A lot of his ECM things, but things that he did prior to being on ECM as well, and a couple things since. And I think those are his best. I really do. But Halloween's come around, and I'm a sucker for marketing, I guess. And I tend to listen to, here's a lot, typical things. Classical Halloween music. This is Reader's Digest compilation. All of these creepy classics. I think this is a Sony thing. These have a lot of the same pieces of music. They're classical. It's classical music, and a lot of things that people know. They don't realize they know until they hear them, mainly because they've been used in movies so much. And I think if they hadn't been used in movies, these compilations wouldn't probably even exist. But people don't know that they know them, and then they pick them up and they're like, where do I know that theme from? And the thing is actually not all of these, but a lot, a good 80% or more. The composer actually was writing, not specifically for Halloween, but kind of like music for ghost stories or the fantastic or spirits, or witches or things like that. So it's kind of reflected in the music. Sometimes you can hear it because music at points has an ominousness to it. And it's interesting because this music, it tends to be instrumental. And yet when you read the history of the pieces by the composer, they were very specific to his stories. There's one story, several stories actually, written by different composers about witches. And they'll give the witch a very specific theme. And when the witch shows up in the story, mind you, this is all instrumental, this theme is played to represent the witch. And, and then these events happen. And yet this is all instrumental. So it's quite interesting stuff. Mussorgsky. Now here's something that wasn't marketed as a Halloween CD, but it falls in my Halloween batch, because the pieces on it tend to be the pieces that are often on Halloween CDs, and they have that ominousness to them. Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition at times, certainly Night on Bear Mountain, also known as Night on Bald Mountain. But that cover, is that a Halloween picture or what? The Halloween Ensemble, Classical Halloween Haunting. This is just like a string quartet. I think that they don't specify who they are really. But this was a little independent thing that I'm sure these are professional orchestral members doing a little side project. And Decca, this is an old thing, I think from the 50s, the tracks of these are taken from. And how it has, that's one of my favorite covers of all. I just love that cover. And again, a lot of the same pieces. Tam O'Shanter Overture. I'd never heard of Tam O'Shanter until I bought this CD, And then I went, and Tam O'Shanter is a story, an old story, like very similar to Sleepy Hollow. I had never heard of this. I don't think it's as well known. It doesn't appear necessarily on a lot of Halloween CDs. And then I read the story, and it's about this guy who's kind of, and again, it's an instrumental representation of this story. Who wrote it? They have the conductor listed, but not the composer. I can't believe that. So I don't know who wrote it. Could be Sir Malcolm Arnold, but I think that's the conductor. But anyway, Tam O'Shanter story, which I had never heard of prior to a few years ago, and getting the CD. It's a story about this guy who's a kind of like a drunken lout, and he's married, and he spends whatever time he can down at the local pub. And this is in the days before automobiles, of people riding their horses back and forth. One night he's coming home from the pub, semi-drunk, and he always, on his way home on his horse, passes by this old, kind of desecrated church that no one uses anymore, and he sees these witches dancing in the church and all that stuff. This is a great Halloween story. And one of the witches, this is a strange twist, one of the witches happens to be a very attractive woman, and he says something to her as she's dancing around, as she sees him and just starts speeding after him. And part of the story is he actually grabs part of the horse's tail and rips out some of the fur or something like that from the horse's tail. And of course the guy's terrified, because then all these demons and these witches start chasing after him. Story I'd never heard before. It sounds very much like a Sleepy Hollow thing, but might even predate it. I'm not sure. Now the odd thing is, I learned just a couple years ago that just blocks from here, from where I live, there's a street named Tam O'Shanter. I don't know if it's Tam O'Shanter Avenue or place or what it is, but I'm betting that the people that live there have no idea about this story. Very odd coincidence. Fright Night. This is when I actually remember picking this up in the store. This is one of the first classical CDs of Halloween music. This used to pop up in the stores every year. They would only be there around Halloween, and then they would take it down, and the next year you would see it. But most of these I bought on the internet. Another great, another witch. I think I have 3 CDs named Witch's Brew. This is just a sampling of what I have. I think I have 3 CDs named Witch's Brew, all with different selections of classical music. But listening to the music, all orchestral. Dance Macabre is a piece that comes up time and time again. If you look at the pictures on some of these wonderful photographs and paintings on some of these CDs as you're listening to the music, there's no way you can not feel the Halloween vibe. Here's one that doesn't have a picture that has anything to do with Halloween, but strictly because of the title, it's a Dvorak thing too. Antonin Dvorak wrote this piece called The Noon Witch. And simply because of the title, I threw it in with my stacks of Halloween CDs, and The Noon Witch gets played every year at this time. And again, it's one of those all instrumental things that's based on an actual story of a witch. So you've got some of that slightly ominous, evil things going on in the music that you might not have in other quote-unquote classical compositions made by Dvorak, who's not really known for any kind of ominous music. So it's interesting that he would do this thing based on this story of the Noon Witch. And then I have this batch of CDs, very small batch of CDs, of music that has nothing to do with Halloween, but something about them reminds me of Halloween, and they get pulled out and they played constantly through the Halloween season. Manuel Gotching, better known as the leader and constant member of Ashra Temple, has this solo. It's an all-solo album. He plays keyboards and guitars from the 70s, this is? Yeah, from like 77. And there's 3 long pieces on here, and I always talk about this piece every year, but there's a piece on here, it's like 23 minutes long, and on a constant loop throughout pretty much the entire 23 minutes is this sound that sounds like a ghost to me. It's obviously coming from a synthesizer, I'm guessing, though I've never heard that sound anywhere else on like all these other 1970s era synthesizer recordings I have. And it's just like, woo, and it plays throughout the whole piece in the background. Now, I don't know what it would sound like to other people. I'd love to play it for other people and say, what does that sound like to you? To me, it sounds like a ghost. And as a result of that, it became a Halloween album. Like every time I play, even if I play it like when it's not Halloween season, it still reminds me of that's a ghost sound. And it's very cool. It's not annoying at all, like you would think it would be. Here's another one. A highly unlikely one, because the title of it is Green Desert by Tangerine Dream. Now, usually whenever any album has anything that suggests weather or heat or anything like that, I would never associate it with anything except summertime. You know, jungle, anything. It's going to be a summertime album association with me. So it's weird that's something called Green Desert. And of course, when you hear desert, you think of heat and hot. And what the hell does that have to do with autumn time and Halloween? So it's strange that this album became a Halloween association for me. And that happened because, God, this must have been 15 years or so ago. It was right around Halloween time, and I was listening to my normal Halloween stuff. I remember specifically driving home from work one day and getting the desire, for whatever reason, man, I got to hear Tangerine Dream's Green Desert. I haven't listened to that for a while. And having nothing to do with Halloween, it just happened to be that fell in the Halloween period. And I got home and I pulled it out. And typically when I pull something out I haven't listened to for a long time, it's only because I'm looking at my stacks of music and I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to that for a while. So it's kind of unusual that I wasn't even around it or didn't read anything about it. There's somebody else writing a review or anything like that. I happened to be driving home, and I remember very specifically where I was when I thought, man, I'm in the mood to hear Green Desert. And then I pulled it out and listened to it that night. And it kind of struck me that, there's a real little ominous Halloweenish vibe to this. And this was days before Halloween. And I really dug it. And I guess I hadn't listened to it much prior to that. I had bought it, listened to it a few times, and put it on the shelf kind of thing. And then I listened to it every single night. You know, every single day after that, I listened to it, even beyond Halloween. And, you know, then I put it back on the shelf. And I noticed the next year when Halloween time came around, I got the vibe to hear it again. And this went on and on and on. And 15 years later, I'm still pulling it out. You know, now it's a full-fledged Halloween album, despite the title suggesting the hot summer heat. And I was, all my music that I listened to through my computer. I got this nice subwoofer on there. So whenever I buy a CD now, I don't even listen to it first. I put it in the CD drive, I copy it into the computer, and I listen to it from there. So generally when I'm not sure what I'm in the mood to listen to, or I want to dig deeper into the archives and see, like, let me listen to some album that I kind of forgot about. And I did that the other day, and I just kind of, because I've got, I don't know, it could be 1,000, at very least it's 700 or 800 albums. That's probably more than that in my computer. I got a lot. I don't have my whole collection in there, but I've got a lot. And I came across this one that a friend had made for me from this label that I knew nothing about at the time. So in the 1980s, there was this label called Valley of the Sun. I think that's the name of it, and it's hard for me to read. Valley of the Sun, based in California. And they were a quote-unquote new age label. And I don't know, here in New Jersey, those recordings, I can tell you, they did not make it here, because I was already into that kind of music and I was seeking it out. And it was a cassette-only label. Now, I tended not to buy a lot of cassettes, very rarely, but I would still look, you know, and I never saw any Valley of the Sun stuff here in New Jersey. So I knew nothing about the label when my buddy told me about them, and he was around, and where he lives in the Chicago area, apparently they were there. They made it over there, and he would pick up the cassettes, and it's a good thing he did. A lot of really interesting, good music. A lot of things that very easily fits the new age category. But a lot of good music was on that label, and it was cassette only. They never reissued stuff on CD, unfortunately. And I came across, and a lot of it's very new age, electronic keyboard oriented. And scanning through my computer, I saw this one by a guy named David Storrs, who is not a guy I knew of prior to my buddy introducing me to him and the other artists on the Valley of the Sun label. And just kind of at random, I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to listen to it, not because it was a Halloween album, just because it was, I was thinking of it like a lot of their music is just very electronic keyboard oriented, very nice new age music, not difficult or dark. And I said, let me listen to that. Even, not everything I'm listening to is necessarily a Halloween album at this point. And I started playing it, and it's probably the darkest thing they ever put on this label. It's really cool. It sounds like ancient voices coming out of some, like, ancient, decrepit, like, imagine, like, Greek ruins or something like that, called Manifestation of the Pyramids. And this is, he went to the library, I believe, and did a scan of the original cassette label. So what you're seeing there is the cassette label. Like I said, never came out on vinyl, never came out on CD. And most of the Valley of the Sun stuff is kind of pleasant new age stuff. And it's weird that this is the one album in that, of all the Valley of the Sun things that he has since sent me, all from old cassettes, that sounded that dark, and I completely had forgotten about it. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh man, I just got a new addition to my Halloween playlist, because sometimes the year goes by and I don't necessarily add a new album in there. It has to happen organically. And there are two long pieces on there, and they both just sound like, like something's voices coming from ancient ruins, and very cool, very cool. Maybe a bit like, now that I think about it, maybe a bit like some dark Popol Vuh music, Florian Frick music, like in that kind of vibe. So, thank you, buddy. I don't want to name names, but thank you, buddy, because it turned me on to this. This is now probably going to be in my Halloween playlist. Other stuff that I listen to every year. This is the Halloween album for me, not music. Ghost Gallery. This is Ghost Stories, written and performed entirely by Tom Willett, an actor who has a channel called Feature Man here. He wrote the ghost stories, he narrated them, and he even created all the music and the background on synthesizers. And I even emailed him and talked about this album a couple times. I don't know, it could be that this is made for kids, but it's so enjoyable that everybody I know that has heard it in the adult world has also liked it. The short tales, short stories, 5 minutes or so long each. I actually put them up on my webpage years ago, like 5 years ago. And recently, a bunch of people, oddly enough, must be looking for Halloween stuff, and they stumbled across them. Because, the older your posts are, people tend not to find them. And I had several people make comments, and, hey, this is great. I just found these stories that you posted 5 years ago. And another one that has nothing to do with Halloween, but I guess because of this subject matter, it's another Halloween thing that always gets played after the Ghost Gallery CD. And this is just an audio documentary about the UFO crash at Roswell. It's just a documentary, and there's some excerpts of people being interviewed years and years ago. And it's fun, but it's serious. It's just like a TV documentary would be. But for some reason, just because it's only audio, it's more fun to me. I don't know. I just like listening to it and imagining my own stuff rather than watching a documentary on TV. I don't know why that is. And then a sampling of, I got tons and tons and tons of things like this, but here's one of my favorites, Halloween horror movie themes. All these themes are not the originals. There's some guy in a synthesizer, and people have given this record terrible reviews because at times the synthesizer can sound a little artificial and thin, but I really have fun with this. I love this CD. They remake the X-Files theme and the first few minutes of Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells and Psycho and blah blah. It's just fun. A fun little synthesizer thing of Halloween themes. And the same company put out classical Halloween music, which is, I guess, more like the other ones that I showed earlier. Orchestral stuff, movie themes, classical pieces like The Night on Bald Mountain again, and Toccata and Fugue D minor, da 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 da. used in horror films a lot, in the 50s especially. Old things. Here's a set of 3 CDs of old radio broadcasts of like the werewolf story and Dracula, kind of adapted from the novels, and Frankenstein monster. And some of these, it's incredible that somebody had the thought to preserve these. Some of these go back to the 1930s and the 1940s, and the quote-unquote most recent stuff is from the early 50s. So you really get that vibe of, all the stories on here were basically done on radio at a time when people didn't, television either wasn't around, or the more recent things from the 50s, few people could afford a TV. You might have had one person on the block that could own that owned a TV back in the early 50s or the mid 50s, because they were so damn expensive. And instead, people used to gather around the radio. And there's something lost when everything is presented to you. And it's just incredible that somebody, for years and years, stored this stuff away. Because imagine in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, they weren't pressing this stuff onto vinyl for the most part. So somebody held on to these as if they knew that at some point this stuff was going to be re-represented to the world. And then more current things. Like I said, this is just a sampling. One of the few things I have that is like recent stuff is the Naxos label, known for budget classical and really good classical albums. Came out with these 2 CD sets of real classic stories read by actors. Most of them are British, actually. Most of the actors are British. 2 CDs. These are all stuffed to the gills with stories. Edgar Allan Poe stories. Rudyard Kipling, M.R. James, O. Henry. And so like each one of these CDs is like 2.5 hours. Classic Chilling Tales, Volume 2, more Edgar Allan Poe, Ambrose Bierce, Oscar Wilde. Just classic tales, but these were done, I guess, I want to say in the 90s. I got 3 volumes. I think there might be a 4th. And again, they're all done by actors reading the stories. If you have a long drive, each one of these is 2.5 hours. If you have a long drive, those are it, and maybe you're a little burnt out listening to music or something. So, I just showed stuff that I've shown before, really, except for the David Stores. Except for this one, which is my new addition to the Halloween playlist. Thank you, buddy. The guy who went to all the trouble to take his old cassettes and do a real good job transferring them. I can't believe when I'm listening to it that the music came from cassette, and do the covers as well. I got not much to say. I started writing some music for the Halloween season, meaning to put it up. Last year I did that. I did 2 parts. I meant to do more. 2 like little 5-minute things. I might link them here. I'm also going to try, after filming this video, to put them in as background music on this video of my Halloween quote-unquote pieces, but I don't know if it's going to work, because a lot of times when I try to put the music in there, the music is too loud and it drowns out the voice. So if you're hearing music, the music that you're hearing is music that was made last year and this year, specifically for the Halloween season. And if you're not hearing music, I'll try to remember to link it so you can go back. So that's it. I hate the fact that it's so close to being over. But and then for me, Halloween lasts at least until Thanksgiving. But I realize for the world out there, by November 1st and 2nd, it's forgotten. And just the thought that I have to wade through another spring and another summer before I get to Halloween again it kills me. It just kills me. Maybe I should go find some place to live where it's like perpetually autumn. That would be good. I don't know any place like that exists in the U.S. A nice 50 degrees, 60 is a high. I don't think there's any place like that exists in the U.S. That would be my place to be. Okay, so here I am. I'm not sure when or if I'm going to pop up again. I'm going to say I intend to do videos, but I don't know subject matter wise really what I have to speak about. Do I just come on and talk about my music that I bought? But I certainly didn't want to let any Halloween year go by without making a video and saying hello to everybody and happy Halloween, and I hope you're getting into it as much as I am. Nobody gets into it as much as I am, but even a little percentage of how much I'm into it. So also want to say hello to everybody that I watch your videos, my friends, and I never make any. So that's it for now. I'll be back at some point probably, and more than likely I'll be posting new music up here from time to time, probably more than making videos, but that's the way it is. So happy Halloween everybody, and I'll hope to see you at some point. Take care.